And if it worked out well, I was going to hand them my papers that had all my old names on it too and tell them I was trans.
Right.
Or not at all, right? Or hand them the ones that didn't. And when the interview went well, they said, the job is yours. I said, well, I need you to know that I'm trans really only because all of my recommendations say Christine on them.
Right.
And she. And my paperwork's going to show this former name. And all the good old boy from Texas, the Mormon from Texas, and the other guys in the room just said, can you do the job? Are you ready to do the job? Are you just not going to have a nervous breakdown on us? I said, you know what? I've been doing this for 2 years. This is perfect timing and couldn't get any better, and this job was written for me. And now I get looked at as I've been a man for like 5 minutes, and now other teachers look at me and say, we're so glad you're here because they need a good male role model in their lives.
Right.
And Eli, as a butch woman, they never said, we're so glad you're here because those baby dykes really need someone to look up to.
And they do, though.
And they do, because you know what? When I was working with those baby dykes that were in my classrooms, we had we kept an eye on them.
Right.
I kept an eye on them. I know I kept them out of a lot of trouble. They got enough on their own. But those 17-year-olds and the 18-year-olds that needed the really super butch, and the one who had the boy haircut that I wanted, it was like, I follow these kids, and I always see them on Facebook 10 years later, almost 15 years later, and see how they've progressed in their gender presentation and who are their girlfriends, and it's just it's a joy for me to serve my community, and it's really about relationship, and I think really good teaching is about relationship. And when you have to hedge what you say, just like when kids ask you, have you done drugs?
Right.
And you say, well, what do you mean by that? When you hedge, have you ever been arrested? But have you ever done drugs? Did you ever get pulled over for drunk driving? Whatever. They know they're asking for a reason because they're looking for help. And if you BS them, you've cut them off. And I think, and being a teacher who has a wife and a child and is about to have a child, kids have to make all these assumptions. Well, you have a wife and a kid, that means you're straight. Right. And therefore, I don't know, why are you telling me not to make faggot remarks?
Right.
I may not be gay, but some of my best friends are. I said, that's offensive to me. Well, why? Are you gay? No. But yes and no. I mean, I'm queer. My wife identifies as a femme, and that's kind of where we were when we got together. And I don't know what to call that. I was straight before. I don't identify as a straight woman, Some trans guys identify as straight. They date women. They identify as straight. It's just not it's not my community. I mean, people with children and queer folk and trans folk, those are my people, really.
Yeah, and I like how you listed the people with children first.
Yeah, because those are the people who are doing what I'm doing. That's the trench. Yeah, that's the trench I'm in right now. When I was transitioning, that was the trench I was in, and I needed those people. And then I got to give back when I was kind of on the other side. And then when we had kids, we were in a parent support group. We were in this PEPS group in Seattle. And the first time we showed up, we said, look, I'm trans. We're a queer couple. It's going to come out. If we're going to spend the next 10 years together, you guys need to know that. And they're like, totally cool. No problem. And then all those different ways in which we have to find our people. And I think one of the biggest reasons we're doing Pride School is, if you may have seen our brochure, one of the first things I wrote is, where are my people? You never have to wonder, where are my people? when you're hanging out in the band hallway or the choir hallway. I didn't get to do that because I didn't take band or choir, and I didn't do drama because I didn't want to wear a dress on stage when I was in school.
Right.
You were not going to get me in a dress on stage and have all those people make fun of me. Never mind, I just wasn't going to do it. So there's things we miss out on. I don't want kids to have to miss out. I don't want to have to miss out.
So, I mean, I think that, it's interesting that, you are talking a lot about, like you said, like, where's my people? And I can imagine that would be why some of this stuff is so important to you. Are there other reasons, like why this hill to plant your flag in? Why is education in general? Like you said, you always wanted to be a teacher, but is there something about education, particularly education of queer youth, that just rings as so important to you? And what is that?
I think so much it's the mentoring aspect of teaching and watching the light come on in somebody's eyes.
Right.
Especially as a math teacher. I'm a math teacher. So I love teaching math and I love working with kids. But I hated the rest of the job after a while. And I realized that something's not right here, and I felt I was enabling a broken system. Which is why I got out. I had a spiritual click one day. And I turned in my papers 2 days later. I said, I'm leaving in June. That was December. I said, I'm leaving in June.
Yeah.
And I always thought I'd last 15 years, and I don't know why. But I love giving kids a foundation. My teachers when I was in especially 6th and 7th grade gave me such an awesome foundation, especially in math, that I want other kids to have the foundation I had. And the relationship too, I've always loved my teachers. I was always a teacher's kind of kid. So I still had a relationship with my 1st grade teacher. My 2nd grade teacher moved away. My 3rd grade teacher died. My 4th grade teacher died, basically. My 5th grade teacher popped back up into my life about a year ago through Facebook. His name's Al Zinzi. He was this amazing person who had these amazing relationships with kids. And my 6th grade teacher, we all had amazing relationships with her. She brought us into her family. She brought her 2-year-old to school. And so we all became family. And this mishmash group of kids from 2 different elementary schools, we got ours shut down and we had to move to this other one for 6th grade. And, it could have been a disaster. And she made it gold. And I think that aspect of creating family at school, that you should feel good when you go to school, that it shouldn't be a war zone. And I think seeing that most kids just need one person to talk to. If they have one, like I didn't really talk real with a teacher until my Spanish teacher junior year in my new school. And I told her what craziness was going on in my home. And she got it. She was able to catch it. And she has still been one of my biggest mentors. My 7th grade teacher, my 6th grade teacher, God rest her soul, she passed away several years ago. Anybody would tell you she was the world's, favorite teacher. My 7th grade teacher is still in my life today. She has always just, every time I go back to visit her, she'd say these amazing things about me and, raise me up. And we all would go to Christmas dinner together at the local pizza joint, me and her and 2 or 3 of my friends, and we laughed. And the laughter, Eli, I think is really what keeps me coming, because I get to laugh about math. I get to laugh about dating, and now being able to work with kids from queer families, kids from queer and trans families, kids who are queer and trans, kids who are gender fabulous, kids who are just whatever is on their plate. So many kids with anxiety are popping out now.
Right.
All their parents say, they have social anxiety, they have this generalized anxiety. I'm like, honey, I don't know any kid or any queer or trans person especially who does not have anxiety. As I'm learning, I myself have anxiety. Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, it's almost like it comes with the territory.
It comes with the territory. I don't know, who's going to beat me up today?
Yeah, and you it sounds like you as a student had a great support network in some of your teachers, but is bullying something that you or your children have had to deal with, like, personally? Like, do you think that you turn to Pride School? You mentioned something about the broken system, and we are going to get into the details about Pride School in just a minute, but, like, do you think that this is something that you wanted to do because you wanted to provide the kind of support that you had teachers provide for you, or did you face a lot of bullying? Did your children face a lot of bullying where you were like, we have to change something about this? Like, or was it some kind of combination of those as a driving force?
It's interesting. I had experienced some bullying. I don't even know what it was related to anymore. It could have been anything, but I never talked to anybody about it.
Right.
Like I was playing girls basketball, and some of my teammates started to get on my case, and they were all dysfunctional in their own special ways. Most of us were affected by alcoholism, whether our own or somebody else's. Some of it was just, we're running. It turns out I had asthma, and I couldn't keep up with the team, and so they'd have to run because I had untreated asthma.
Right.
Whatever the reason, one of the biggest things is that kind of stuff happened, and I never told anybody. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my best friends even, because they weren't on the team with me anymore. I was embarrassed by it, and so I kept my mouth shut. And I think those little things alone that happen behind closed doors in the locker room when nobody's looking, knowing that stuff and seeing what an impact positive relationships have on teens especially,
right.
and on gender diverse youth, quote-unquote gender non-conforming, right. Kids who, especially boys, the pink boys, if they have somebody who has their back, they can actually make it through. If they have much more than one person, because there's got to be somebody in the hallways, there's got to be someone in the locker room, there's got to be somebody around the bathrooms, and one trusted adult. My wife says this especially because she's done some work with Planned Parenthood. You may not be able to tell your mom, but you may be able to tell your aunt or uncle or
right.
your teacher. And if you can tell one trusted adult what's going on in your life, you can save your own life and somebody else's in the process, because if your best friend's suicidal, you got to tell somebody, right? And you look at all our kids from queer and trans families who are bullied because of who their parents are, who their siblings are, kids who are bullied because people think that they're gay,
right?
And because of their weight, whatever it is, I think that so many of them suffer in silence, and not until it's too late when they're cutting and doing drugs and isolated and, on antidepressants and, in treatment, hoping to stay alive, does something get done where they can actually let somebody in. And and that's, I think, that one of the biggest parts of that brokenness of we can't educate everybody in a 30, 60-person school.
Right.
But we can actually bring members of the community into the school so that they can mentor our kids. They're all there. There's thousands of seniors who can actually come and mentor our youth. There's thousands of people with no children who can come and mentor our youth. And one of the biggest reasons I've stayed in this line of work is because little bits and pieces happen along the way. And I will tell you, when I came out as trans, I wasn't very open about it. I was scared to death, and I didn't know what to tell people. And my mother cut off contact with me for 6 months, my mother and father, because they didn't know what to tell people.
Yeah.
And I ran into former students, and I acted like I didn't know them.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to tell them, because I was afraid of what they'd say. Was I afraid they were going to out me to the rest of the world? Now, these were the nicest kids that I adored. And one guy held the door open for me at Starbucks, and I walked right by him. I had been growing a beard. I didn't want to explain myself. I just wanted a cup of coffee.
Right.
And this other young woman looked at me. She's working the deli counter at the grocery store down the street. I was like, oh, man, Heather wants something from the deli. Now I got to do this. And she looked at me, you know, it's like you don't want to talk to the cable company because they're going to misgender you, and you don't want to talk to the phone company, you know, anybody over the phone. But she looked at me and she said, "Do you have a